Welcome members to Cabinet this morning, which is being live streamed. Just a reminder to all members who wish to speak, please use your microphone, and when you're not speaking, please remember to turn it off. It's unfortunate that today the Chairman and Councillor Sam Chapman-Allen and the Vice Chairman, Councillor Paul Clausen, are unable to attend our meeting this morning. So I welcome everybody who's here, both members, non-members wishing to speak, and also officers. But the first thing I must do, in line with Standing Order 34.3, is to ask members of the Cabinet to propose a chairman for today's meeting. So do I have a proposer? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Can I propose Councillor Sherwood chairs the meeting?
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that proposal?
I second that proposal.
Thank you. Okay, so therefore I duly announce that the chairman for today will be Councillor Ian Sherwood. And I'll hand over to you, Ian. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cabinet colleagues, for this surprise. I'm pleased to be able to chair the meeting in the absence of both the Chairman and the Vice Chairman. First of all, I'd just like to say, those of us who were here earlier, we've had a tremendous opportunity to congratulate some of the people who've been working exceedingly hard for the Council. And we've also had our recipients of honours from the Queen's honours list present this morning, so that was a great honour. And behind me here you'll see the new portrait of Her Majesty the Queen, which the Council is delighted to have. It's a signed portrait, and we're particularly pleased to have had that unveiled today by the Lord Lieutenant. And this is to mark the Queen's Jubilee year. So I think you'll agree that it's a fitting thing for us all to have. If I can move on to item 1, the minutes of the meeting that were held on the 10th of January. You can find those on page 4 of the agenda pack. Could I have someone agree to confirm those, please? All in favour? Thank you very much. Item 2 is to confirm the apologies. We've had them mentioned, but apologies have been received from Sam Chapman-Allen, Paul Clausen and Phil Cowan. Item 3 on the agenda is urgent business to provide if required, but nothing has been reported to me, so I've got no urgent business unless any of my colleagues have got anything. I'll be coming to you later under item 6, if I may, Councillor Webb. Can I go to item 4, declarations of interest? Can I ask any members if they have any interests to declare? Thank you. We should be over by about 10:15. That's going well. Item 5, could I welcome non-members, and I acknowledge the presence in the room of the non-members, and I'll assume that you may well wish to address the meeting, which of course we welcome. You might have to wave a bit more for me, but I've got 2 able assistants, 3 or 4 able assistants who might catch you if I don't. So don't think I'm deliberately trying to ignore you. You'll know when I'm doing that. But we do welcome you very much to the meeting. So item 6 is the Chairman's announcements. I'd like to begin with, if I may, that there have been some concerns around Dereham, and in particular the stabbing in Dereham, and Alison Webb would like to make a few comments in relation to that. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as the Chairman has rightly pointed out, there's been concern about rising a perceived increase in violence, especially among youths, including the recent stabbing in Dereham. I would like to reassure all that Breckland District Council and our inspiring communities is working closely with both the police and a qualified member of the community. We're doing lots of things. These are just a few of them. We're helping coordinate a hub or space for youth provision suitable for young people that prevents them from being exploited into potential county lines activity or other dangerous situations. We've also engaged with NCC, detached youth workers and the Youth Advisory Board and Mind, which is the mental health charity. So I just want to make sure that we are aware, we are doing something positive, and we will be taking this forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Alison. I think it's important that we identify with the communities, and these issues do cause great concern to our local residents. And I know how hard your team has been working on that. So thank you very much for that update. If I can go on to item 7, which is Breckland Community Funding Applications. If I can refer to Councillor Alison Webb, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yesterday, our Queen celebrated her 70th year accession to the throne. Our congratulations go to Her Majesty, of course. I am absolutely delighted to announce the Breckland District Council's plans for Our Majesty the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. Firstly, we will be launching on the 2nd of June a bursary scheme that provides financial assistance to residents who otherwise struggle to access higher education for reasons such as low income, low income, health status or vulnerability. The scheme will apply to students studying a formal qualification in subjects that provide a demonstrable contribution by improving well-being and or enriching the environment. These two things especially meet our theme for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee and Breckland's corporate plan objectives. So I'm going to say a bit about this because I think it's important. This bursary scheme is something that we've never done before. It's an initial thing for the council to do, and I think it should be really recognised as a good thing to celebrate this year's the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. So something a bit different, something that I know will help the objectives which we're trying to achieve in the council. Additionally, there will be a number of Jubilee apprenticeships established across Breckland. A drone crown photograph will be taken across a landmark in each of Breckland's towns to commemorate the occasion. A number of Breckland buildings will be illuminated purple. A shop front trail will be encouraged to make sure that every Breckland town celebrates this occasion. Tree planting across Breckland for the Queen's Canopy initiative. And finally, I'm very pleased to announce that a Breckland match funding scheme will also be launched on the 2nd of June, offering grants up to £500 for community groups to apply. All this is being done to celebrate Her Majesty the Queen's accession. So we're very proud and pleased to be able to do this. Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm sorry. I also have something else, but if there's any questions first, I'd be delighted.
Thank you, Alison. I can let you chair the meeting from there if you like. Thank you for assistance. Thank you, Alison. Are there any questions, firstly from Cabinet colleagues on what Alison has said? Thank you. Any other questions from around the room? Councillor Burt.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it was back in September, Cabinet, was it, that there was it was mentioned that there would be Jubilee grants available. It was discussion about parishes being involved in. Now, my parish clerk has been keeping an eye on the website and been unable to, every time she accesses it, it's no grants are available or nothing's open at the moment. So time is getting on, and if the villages are actually going to do something this summer, I think some idea of how they're going to apply and what's available may need to be made fairly soon. So could we have a bit of feedback, please, on what's happening?
Thank you, Councillor Burt. Councillor Webb, could you respond, please?
Of course, thank you, Councillor Burt. Yes, as I've just announced, these are all the things that we're doing. There will be no grants allocated to town or villages this year. The distribution of grants has been made in different ways, and as you notice at the very end, I talked about the match funding grant, which will be available to community groups from the 2nd of June. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison. Are there any other questions or comments, please? Thank you very much. I now move on to item 8, which, sorry, Alison, you see, you should have been up here. I think you had something else to say,
Yes, I
Councillor
did.
Webb.
Thank you. Sorry to keep interrupting. Yeah, thank you. Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about today, before you all get bored of my voice, is the Household Support Fund. The Household Support Fund, we have to date spent 167,500 of the allocated 193,200. We have paused the scheme because obviously we don't want to be raising people's hopes and applying when we run out of funds. However, just to reassure all that we are applying for more funds to go into this scheme because we recognise what help it gives to residents. Breckland District Council have spent the highest percentage of total allocations of all district councils. So I will be updating you in due course with the news whether we get further funds to be able to allow this to proceed. Thank you very much, Chairman. I'll be quiet now.
Thank you, Alison. It's nice for you to be able to update us on those various projects. So thank you very much for that. I'll move on to item 8, which is the budget setting medium-term financial plan and capital strategy to 2022-23. Now, as you are aware, Councillor Phil Cowan is not present, so he would normally present this. So I will present the item, but if there are any detailed questions, I'm very lucky to have Alison Chubbuck, who's the Assistant Director for Finance, in the room. So it's all down to you, Alison, if there's any technical questions. So I'll begin if I may. As you all know, the draft budget, medium-term plan and capital strategy that is before us today was presented to Cabinet on January the 10th, when it was determined that it be reviewed as confirmed in the resolution under item 9/22 of the published January minutes. The review was undertaken at the February 27th meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee held at Elizabeth House. After discussion and debate, members voted to accept the report tabled under item 7, and in particular, the recommendation that the draft capital and revenue budget estimates, the draft medium-term financial plan and the draft capital strategy are reviewed in preparation for the final budget setting in February 2022. Thus, the papers being returned to Cabinet ahead of the Budget Setting Council later in the month with the following recommendations. Recommended to full council that the Breckland revenue estimates and parish special expenses for 22-23 and outline position through to 25-26 as set out in Appendix B and E are approved. 2, that the capital estimates and associated funding for 21-22 and 22-23 and outline position through to 25-26 as set out in Appendix H are approved. 3, the fees and charges shown at Appendix D and D2 for adoption on the 1st of April 2021 are approved. 4, the council tax is set at £103.68 for a Band D property in 22-23, a £4.95 per annum increase on the 21-22 levels. 5, the financial medium-term plan Appendix A is approved. 6, the capital strategy at Appendix G is approved. In proposing these recommendations, I would draw your attention to the diligent work that the team Breckland has undertaken during the pandemic, and particularly over the last 12 months. The recommendations before us today build upon the Council's prudent financial management that we have been reporting for the last 2 years. In summary, I would draw your attention to the following key points. This is a balanced budget for the coming year set against continued uncertainties around government funding, potential central policies and fees and charging income streams. In order to maintain services, deliver on our core strategies and initiatives and support residents and businesses, the budget contemplates proposed increase in council tax for a Band D property of £4.95 a year, less than 10 pence per week. Looking ahead, whilst the papers before you reflect the draft local government settlement, they are relatively silent on future trends, but there is no doubt that we shall face challenges in the future as a result of the widely trailed central government policies surrounding, for example, recycling provisions. Similarly, there is significant risk associated with the National Non-Domestic Rates, NNDR, and its reset, and this will change the baseline funding level, and the team has identified this risk in the budget preparations as having an impact in either years 23-24 or 24-25. Whilst there is no suggestion of an imminent fair funding review, this is anticipated in 25-26 year. Government has provided a further 830,000 of new homes bonus, and this has been posted to the Inclusive Growth Fund reserves to enable us to maintain delivery of projects and programmes. Continuing impact of COVID-19 throughout the last 12 months has led the Council to review and amend efficiency requirements, and as a result, the Evolve programme has been developed that will help to offset the anticipated budget deficits in the immediate future. These are on pages 12 and 13 of your pack under item 110. With regard to the capital programme, there is an identified need to borrow over the medium term. But this is to offset through the repayment mechanism from savings in the waste collections waste contract. Thus, the borrowing requirement is in effect nil over the medium term. We do face risks, and these have been articulated as follows. NNDR reset, potential impact of 1.229 million per year. The environmental bill, potential impact of 1.5 to 3.5 million per year. Recovery of housing benefits through migration to universal credit, and the benchmarking review within the PFI scheme. Details are contained in the appendices attached to these papers, and Alison Chubbuck, Assistant Director and Section 151 Officer, is with us today to assist in answering detailed questions. To conclude, this draft budget is based on the following principles. Breckland has no reliance on NHB funding. Breckland can and will remain service deliveries. Breckland will continue to invest in our priorities. Thriving places, Breckland 2035, working smarter and inspiring communities. Breckland has reserves that will be used to provide financial support for projects that lead the growth and investment and are achieved savings or income. Breckland has put into place an achievable efficiencies programme to assist the management of future funding challenges and financial risks. Breckland has increased the council tax hardship fund by a further £35,000. So there's the statement in relation to item 8. Cabinet colleagues, can I ask you first if you've got any questions, points, or any comments for me, please? Councillor Paul Hewitt.
Thank you, Chair. Members, Chair, I sat in the Cabinet meeting on the 10th of January, where we looked in some detail at both the challenges and the opportunities of this planned budget, medium-term financial and capital strategy. I sat in OSC, where that same plan and strategy was scrutinised in detail by our Overview and Scrutiny Commission, and taking all that on board, bearing in mind that it's been prepared, it's been scrutinised, It raises some challenges for this council moving forward. I absolutely wholeheartedly support this. There are challenging times right now and ahead for parishes, for districts, and for counties. Everyone will need to work as Team Breckland in order to deliver on this budget, its medium-term financial plan, and our capital strategy. There are continued uncertainties in every single market in which we operate. And you've articulated the risks, and those are reflected in terms of this budget. But having said that, this is a balanced budget. It meets our corporate objectives. It allows us to stand up for our residents, and it ensures our businesses and our residents can thrive. So I fully support it, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hewitt. Any other comments or points from the Cabinet colleagues? Thank you. Any questions from the floor? I think Terry just beat your hand there, Councillor Burt. So Councillor Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just a couple of questions or sort of comments, if I may. Just two particular areas of concern. The one is around housing and homelessness. I've sat in this room for a number of years at Cabinet meetings where we've all acknowledged the significant increase in demand and therefore the increasing cost to housing and homelessness. And I mean, that's again on the agenda today and a future agenda item. Despite the fact that we've known about it and we've put additional money into that service. And I just wonder really if we could have a comment on how robust this budget is for the next financial year to deal with the demand for housing and homelessness. I was quite concerned, obviously, because there have been issues in the past, but given the sort of news over the last few weeks around sort of cost of living and inflation, the demand is only going to increase, and we need to make sure that that support is there and it's robust enough to deal with it amongst a number of other pressures. And once mentioned housing, members have received some very useful briefings and training over the last few months around housing. But what that says to me is the demand is significant and it's there. So that's the sort of background to that question. The second is around, we've got this household support fund, which Alison kindly alluded to earlier, and we also have the Hardship Fund. I was very concerned when we suspended the household support fund because, like many members, I had a number of people that were going through the process of accessing that and didn't quite get there. So I'm pleased that we are at least applying for additional money. I would be more reassured as if we had confirmed today that we did have additional money. So where are we at, please, with this current year's hardship fund in relation to council tax, and what flexibility is with that to sort of vary the terms, if you like, given that we're overly subscribed massively on the household support fund, and as far as I understand it, we're undersubscribed on the hardship fund. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jeremy. I'll go to Councillor Webb first.
Thank you, Councillor Jeremy. Okay, the first question you've asked was about homeless and housing. The question is, what's going to be happening in the future? We all know the situation today and we know how bad things can be. However, I'd like to reassure you that the team are doing absolutely everything they can to push forward, especially since we've had a newly reorganised housing team, which is making a great strides in making sure that whenever possible, the people who need homes are either encouraged to look for private housing or working with social housing providers to actually provide the housing. I'm not going to lie, there is a shortage of housing out there for how many people we have, as you well know. But as I said, at the end of the day, I would like to reassure you that the team is working very hard to actually work with people on all the different ways that this could possibly happen. You've talked about homelessness. As you know, the Elm Road development is going to help with the homelessness side of things. It's not going to, you're talking about the funding for the homelessness. Of course, it's going to be more cost effective for us to have people homeless in our accommodation, Elm Road. It's going to be more cost effective for the council. So we are working on that side of things. Again, homeless is another issue where we have people who are homeless who choose not to go into accommodation, even though we offer it to them. So I'd like to really show you we're supporting on that side of things. You've also talked about the household support fund, and I totally agree that we need to get some more money into that because we recognise the need out there. And you've also talked about the hardship fund. The hardship fund, as you know, because we've sent emails, I've sent emails out to every councillor, including yourself, saying, please remember the household support fund is still available for use. As I said, there are other ways of dealing with when people are in financial crisis. Our team is actually talking to people who ring up on the homeless side of things and homeless and housing and household support and saying to them, these are the different options, the different things which we can do to help them. So it's not just put down one road. It's not just the household support fund. It's actually the hardship fund, everything we can do to help individuals get through this very challenging time in the future. So no, I'm going to be honest, I don't have actual figures for what we've got in the hardship fund at the moment. I will find that out and get back to you where we are on it. But I know at the moment it's still available for individuals who really need help, our Breckland individuals who need help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Webb. Councillor Burt.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got three questions, so two are related, so perhaps we'll take those first. Recommendation 3 is approving the fees and budgets for 2021, and yet in the agenda pack on page 33, we're looking at them for 2022. I just slightly confusing as to why we're retrospectively agreeing something. Fine. So let's move to page 33 then, if we can. Midway down the Hackney carriage and private hire licences. The figures that are presented in the report don't seem to be the same as are being proposed in a letter sent to taxi drivers. And in a letter sent to them, it indicated that, for example, the private hire operators renewal will go up from 144.45 to £415, which is a huge change. And it says in that letter that these proposed changes will take place on the 1st of April 2022, which I think is what we're doing here. So can I have some clarity as to what figures we're presenting here, and are these the accurate ones, or is there going to be a different set of figures because it doesn't tie up with the letter? I've got a separate question, perhaps we deal with that afterwards.
Thank you, Councillor Burt. Yes, just to confirm, to make sure everybody heard my comment off mic, you're correct on the year. That is a typographical error, if I can say that, and that should be 22. I'll call on Cabinet Member Councillor Gordon Bambridge, please.
Thank you. Well, I'm not sure of the figures that you're actually referring to. The private hire vehicle charges that you've seen indicate charges that have not been increased for 7 years. They've not been adjusted for 7 years. They are calculated to be an actual cost reflection of issuing the license, and the new licenses you are paying for a 7-year period. Sorry, a 5-year period and not a 3-year period. But if you'll allow me, I will send a written answer to that, which I'll happily copy to anyone present.
Thank you, Councillor Bambridge, but I will also ask Alison Chubbuck if you can put any further light on those figures with the question from Councillor Burt, please.
Yes, sorry, I'm not aware of the letter that Councillor Burt's referring to, so I shall have to speak to the licensing team with regard to that.
So, Councillor Burt, thank you very much for raising that. I think it does need a degree of clarification, so we'll get that clarification sorted for you. Could I go on to your following questions?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Page 63 of the agenda. Partway down, we're spending £50,000 in our capital budget for a new access road for the wind turbines, having sold the Green Britain Centre. This is a significant capital expenditure. I've got a couple of questions on that specific one. Was it known that we would need to build this new access road before the Green Britain Centre was sold? And is the funding from it going to derive from the sale of the Green Britain Centre? And what's the return on investment? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burt. I'll call on Councillor Paul Hewitt to throw some light on those questions, please.
And in brief, the answer was one, yes, it was known. There was a right of way across the site to the Green Britain Centre that we have had to move. Two, it was planned for. And three, like many other of our services, Councillor Burt, there is no ROI when there is a service. I said that very bluntly, just in case. So we don't measure returns on investment where we offer certain things as services rather than investments.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. Councillor Burt, is that? Thank you. Councillor Philip Morton.
Thank you, Chairman. I do appreciate we're in a very tight position financially, and it looks as though it's going to be difficult for years coming, probably the next for half a dozen years. What concerns me slightly, and it's no criticism involved, is on page 13, we're talking of an evolved programme which is going to be hopefully delivering savings of 1.6 on top of the projects already in progress. And I can understand that we've been doing contracts review and back office ways of working for a number of years. So I assume that's fairly exhausted. I'm struggling to understand, and probably we could have more detail on the other three options that we're talking of: alternative housing model and alternative delivery company models, plus solar as a way of making savings. I don't expect a full answer here today, but I hope that's developed and put out to people as it develops.
Thank you, Councillor Morton. Yes, I think you make some points there that we fully understand. There is big concern. We are in a difficult position financially as far as the whole country is concerned. You know, we've had a difficult time, I acknowledge that. Could I ask Alison Chevok to make some comments on those points, please?
Thank you. Yes, certainly. It is a programme which will involve a few different elements. The alternative delivery models are something which could take into any area of the council. It could be arts, communities, assets, it could be anything. So those ideas need to be further developed over the coming 2 to 3 years in order to achieve that forecast budget gap in 2025. But for the next couple of years, we've got time in order to do that properly. And as more detail is available and more detail becomes known about these, then they would come back as business plans over time.
Thank you, Alison. I hope that gives you some reassurance there, Councillor Morton. Are there any further questions? Thank you. So if I may, I'll refer to the recommendations, which I'll read. Recommended to full council that the Breckland reserve estimates and parish special expenses for 22-23 and outlined position through to 25-26 as set out in Appendix B and E are approved. 2, that the capital estimates and associated funding for 21-22 and 22-23 and outlined position through to 25-26 as set out in Appendix H are approved. Item 3, with the amendment, the fees and charges shown at Appendix D and D2 for adoption on the 1st of April 2022 are approved. 4, the council tax is set at £103.68 for a Band D property in 22-23, a £4.95 per annum increase on the 21-22 levels. 5, the financial medium-term plan Appendix A is approved. 6, the capital strategy Appendix G is approved. Could I have a proposer, please? Gordon, seconder. Mark, all in favour? Thank you. Now we move on to item 9, the Armed Forces Mobilisation Policy. This would have been my moment to speak had I been sitting on the floor, but I will be presenting this item. As an organisation, we are aiming to achieve gold status in relation to the Armed Forces Covenant. Our commitment as an organisation is being led by Councillor Paul Clausen and supported by Andrew Holdsworth, the Assistant Director for Economy and Growth. In addition to our commitment to our communities, we want to extend this to our employees and potential employees. Previously, we've had a section in our special leave policy that stated armed forces employees could take up to 2 weeks leave to fulfill their duties. We have reviewed this and written a reservist policy using the Ministry of Defence's example policy to enhance this and make clear our commitment to people applying for jobs with us and employees if they wish to join the reserves. The 2 key elements to the policy are that we have added an extra 2 weeks special leave allowance on top of the 2 weeks we already have in place. This is to support annual camps as suggested by the Ministry of Defence. We've also stated our commitment to potential employees who have been in the armed forces by offering a guaranteed interview where they meet the minimum criteria. This is to support ex-forces personnel who have a valuable and transferable skills into a new career path. If agreed, the policy will be published as part of our Armed Forces Covenant work and will take effect immediately. Our commitment would be shown to our commitment would be shown on our recruitment documentation website, and the relevant procedures would be put in place. Could I also add, if any of you downloaded the agenda pack when it was first published, there were a couple of omissions and typos in that policy, in so much as the actual days were not listed. If you've downloaded it recently or you look at the agenda pack online currently, that is correct. Have I got any questions or comments from Cabinet colleagues, please? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Chairman. I'm really pleased to see this come forward today. It builds on our commitment to the Armed Forces Covenant, which we've participated in and supported for a number of years. And for those members of our team that are either currently a reservist or considering on one, it builds upon their desire to serve. It also gives assurance to team members that Breckland is supportive of their dedication to public service. So I wholeheartedly support this going forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Robinson. I've got Councillor Webb and Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to add my support to this. I think Mark has said it all. I mean, this, as far as I'm concerned, we should be supporting these things, and I'm very, very pleased it's been put forward. Thank you very much.
And with that sound like a crack record, Chair, I would also like to support this very strongly. Our armed forces have demonstrated commitment to this district and the area around it. We, in turn, should repay that support. But outside of this place as well, I work with a number of organisations who have got positive recruitment strategies for former military employees and vets. And I just think it is a fantastic opportunity for them to see life outside of the service, bringing together all of the skills that they bring with them in the service of this country into other organisations. Fully recommend it.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Bambridge, and then I'll ask for any other comment.
Yes, thank you. I mean, again, he talks about a cracked record, and I'll probably join that. My record is equally cracked, but I've been a councillor for a very long time, and throughout that time, I have had come to me time and time again, former armed forces officers, men who are sometimes on hard times, but have moved to Breckland and have been very grateful for the manner in which Breckland Council have dealt with them. So I think we do have a good record. I fully approve this proposal we have for us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from anybody else? Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, Chairman. As you mentioned, when this was originally published, it was written as an example of a company policy, and I now see it's been fully updated to reflect it as a council policy, and perhaps therefore the heading no longer requires the word example. As Honorary President of Thetford Royal British Legion, I very much welcome this positive support for employees and job applicants who are also reservists, and acknowledge the important contribution to the role of the armed forces. And not forgetting, as the district councillor that has Stanter in their ward with no voters, a huge number of reservists get trained there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. Before I move on to the recommendation, I would just like to comment further. Councillor Burt, I was in full flow there.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I've broken in. I think it would be useful. Can we have an idea of how many reservists are actually in our employ? That would be useful to know for the future, to see how we've expanded upon that.
I'll make sure we get that answer for you. I don't have that figure, and I haven't got anyone from HR here. Oh, but shall I ask Susie? Susie, you could come forward if you have that information.
It's a nice easy one. It's none at the moment that we're aware of.
So there's your answer. Before I go to the recommendation there, I'd like to say, as a former officer in the reservists, I appreciate what this will mean. When I was looking for employment, you had to take into consideration that when you gave your time as a reservist, and I had to attend annual camp as well as lots of other weekends away, that impact on your family. And I think when people will be looking for employment, knowing that they can come to an employer who recognises that service, which is an important part of the armed services life, they will make that as a consideration. So I think we'll be a more attractive employer to ex-military personnel and to reservists, which is exactly what we're trying to do with this covenant. Taking that time, being away from your family, having additional time to be able to fulfill your military commitments is a really important feature. So the recommendation to Cabinet is that Cabinet approves this new policy and associated procedures. Can I have a proposer? All in favour? Thank you very much. Item 10 is Q3 Financial Performance Report 21-22. As we already know, Councillor Phil Cowan is away. Alison Chubbuck again will take any questions, etc. I'm just going to ask Councillor Paul Hewitt to speak to this. Thank you, please.
Thank you, Chair. As indicated on behalf of Councillor Phil Cowan, Executive Member for Finance, I present the report that's outlined as agenda item 10. This is an update, and therefore the report requires only to be noted by councillors, but the recommendation is: 1, the report is noted; 2, the recommendations are that the revenue and benefits reserves are used to smooth the financial effect of the national non-domestic rates levy and surplus between 21.2 and 22.3, as identified and detailed in paragraph 1.5, that the overspend as at 31 March is funded from the Growth and Investment Reserve, and that the Section 31 government grants additional 60% received in advance for the national non-domestic rates retail rate relief provided to businesses held in the revenues and benefits reserves at the end of the year to cover the spend 22-23. In outline, the report is in front of you. This, as I say, is a Q3 update. To be quite blunt, the update is reasonably positive given the financial position that the country faces itself at the moment. And although there is a projected overspend of approximately £198,000, delighted to show that progress against our efficiencies have been very strong to date, but the rest of the report identifies where some of the challenges over Q4 will continue to have an impact on our business, pardon me, on our council. But if I may, Chair, I will make the recommendation that Cabinet notes the report and the accompanying appendix.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Cabinet colleagues, have you got any comments, points, please? Thank you. Councillor Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just a couple of questions, if I may. I'm looking at the top of table 2, where it details significant variances. The cost centre talks about housing benefit claims, but the narrative is about general housing costs. So I'm just wondering if we could have an explanation as to what that section there is, and what constitutes that variance, really, is what I'm getting at. And specifically, it refers to increased costs due to construction delays at the facility in Thetford, and what percentage really of that overall cost is due to those delays, because it's quite a big variance and there's a number of different elements to it. So just a bit more information about that, if I may. But also more of a sort of political point, really. I take a keen interest in what's going on at Elm Road. It's in my ward, very, very supportive of it. But it will take a relatively small number, about a third of the current number of people in Breckland in emergency accommodation. What's Elm Road plan B? What's the next Elm Road? Because actually it's going to deal with a number of people and support a number of people, which is great. But immediately before the demand increases, as it inevitably will do this year, what's the Cabinet doing about plan B? Because, will we sit here next year and see a variance in housing benefit claims again? Because actually the demand's increasing quicker than the supply. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jeremy. I'm going to ask Councillor Webb to come in, and I will also be asking Alison to clarify some of the points you raised on the figures there. Thank you, Councillor Webb.
Thank you, Councillor Jeremy. Elm Road, as you know, is progressing very well. We are nearly at the stage where we'll be able to actually welcome our first people into it. It is a step forward to what we would like to do for all temporary accommodation that we have. At the moment, as I said, as you know, we've got the units that are going into the land surrounding Elm House, which are going to be for our homeless people. We are looking at other options going forward, but they're not at a stage yet where I can actually share them with you. So please be reassured that we are looking to the future. We do recognise that temporary accommodation is going to be a real need for the future ongoing, not just for now, and we're looking at every opportunity to make sure that we offer good value as well as a really good, safe place for people, Breckland people, to live who have to be in temporary accommodation. So please be reassured, we're looking at all the options. As soon as I have something concrete to actually tell you, I will be back. I'll be delighted to come back and tell you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. Alison, please.
Thank you. Yes, so the housing benefit shows the amount of benefit which we are not able to claim back from government over and above the maximum that they will allow us to claim for the nightly charge for temporary accommodation. So this will reduce significantly once those new facilities and the pods and all of the new work which Councillor Webb has mentioned comes into play. In terms of the percentage, that's not something I can really sort of source from that, because we don't know how much the demand would have gone up. So it's sort of a moving feast. So I can't really give you an answer, I'm afraid, on that one. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Alison. Councillor Webb.
Just as a matter of interest, something else I thought of is that over the last 2 months, the temporary accommodation list has reduced due to the work of the housing team. They have managed to find permanent accommodation for a good, I think it's a quarter of the people on the temporary accommodation list. So this is good news. As I said, it's progressing the right way. Who knows what's going to happen in the future, but please be reassured that we're doing everything we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. Any other questions or comments, please? Thank you. On a personal level, Alison, I'd like to thank you because I know of a local resident in my own ward, and I know how hard the team worked to make sure that they were safe and secure. And I think this is very often a great amount of the unsung work of ward councillors and our team. homelessness and, accommodation is something that is not hidden, but it doesn't necessarily be at the front of all our lives if we're fortunate enough to, have a home and have somewhere. But when it affects somebody's life, it can be quite devastating. And the combined working together and providing those holistic services around that whole issue, because there are many causes for this, is really important. So, thank you very much. So kindly, Councillor Hewitt has made the recommendation there. And just to repeat it, it's the Cabinet note, the report and appendix. Can I have a show of hands, please? Thank you very much. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Cabinet recommendation to full council. Thank you. I'll tell you what, if I keep doing this, I'll get it right. Not that I want to. Recommendation is that Cabinet note, report and appendix, Cabinet recommend to full council that the revenues and benefits reserve is used to smooth the financial effect of the NNDR levy and surplus between 21-22 and 22-23 years as detailed in paragraph 1.5. 3, that the overspend at the 31st of March 22 is funded from the growth and investment reserve. 4, that the S31 government grant addition 60% received in advance of the NNDR retail rate relief provided to businesses is held in the revenues and benefits reserve at the end of the year to cover the spend in 22-23. Are you comfortable with that, Cabinet? Thank you very, very much. Is that okay, Teresa? Did I get that? Thank you very much. Item 11 is the Q3 performance report. If I could invite Councillor Mark Robertson to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm delighted to bring forward the Q3 performance report to Cabinet today. This being the first occasion a new suite of indicators has been brought forward to this forum, but has also been viewed and scrutinised by the Overview and Scrutiny Commission on the 27th of January. What colleagues will note is there are some gaps within this report, which Ryan Pack, our Innovation and Change Partner, will explain in a moment or two. The reason why we have brought this report in its current state is we felt it's important that we continue to monitor the Council's performance as soon as possible after the end of the quarter. Q3 saw strong performance from both our planning and statutory information team, who performed at or above their target for this quarter. Members will also note that under the customer contact indicator, we have included wait times and abandonment rates for the quarter. Whilst it's always disappointing to not be performing at target in this area, it's encouraging to see continued improvement from the service. There is still work to do, but this does fit with our projection that improvement will be seen gradually in this service as a result of the service review undertaken last year. Colleagues will also note that in Appendix B in their packs relates to COVID-based performance for the Council, as well as providing an update on the current state of the district. The inclusion of this information is due to Council's commitment to COVID work in its corporate plan, and therefore makes sense to bring this forward alongside the new suite. We continue to feed into and support the work of the Resilience Forum within the district, including our community team supporting pop-up vaccination centres in the area where vaccine uptake is lower than elsewhere. You'll be pleased to know at this stage my dulcet tones will leave you, and I'll now hand over to Ryan to cover some specifics.
Thank you, Councillor. As Councillor Robinson sort of just briefly said there are some gaps in the report just based on the time we agreed the indicators and getting the report published in order to bring it to overview and scrutiny. The same with targets. Part of that is we're looking at baselining certain targets at the moment, so it wouldn't be right for us to include a target now and then subsequently change that in a few months once we've seen what the data looks like. The only additional point I'd just like to make is on the complaints indicator. I've added some additional wording in there because I misspoke at overview and scrutiny when I said it was 74 complaints we'd responded to in the period. It's actually 75. So that didn't affect the percentage, but I've just updated that wording in the commentary. I'm obviously happy to take any questions from Cabinet or other members if there are any.
Thank you very much, Ryan. I always like the phrase misspoke. That will probably cover this whole session with me chairing it, but I'm doing my best. Cabinet colleagues, Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, ultimately, the job of performance indicators is to indicate what we need to do next rather than what happened. It feels to me like there are some very pleasing measures that we can see, but we won't shout about them because it's all about what happens over the next few months. Congratulations in getting this into its new format. Congratulations in terms of focusing, in terms of where business heads and various other members of this council need to focus moving forward.
Any other cabinet colleagues? Thank you. Councillor Morton.
Just a small point on page 100, looking at the water usage, could you confirm what the measure is?
In terms of what the measure is, so there's the appendix, isn't there, which shows the water usage for the buildings, which is Appendix C, which I think we've put in there. Is that what you're talking about, councillor? Sorry, let me just load it up on the screen. Oh, yes, sorry, Greg's just confirmed that.
Just for clarity, Councillor Morton, you're asking for the measurement of the unit, either litres, cubic metres, pints, or quarts.
Sorry, Greg. Oh, sorry.
So I will double check to confirm, Councillor Morton, but my understanding is it would be cubic meters.
Thank you, Councillor Morton. Thank you. Any other questions, please? Thank you very much. So, would you like to make the recommendation, Councillor Robinson?
Thank you, Chairman, and that is to note the reports.
Cabinet colleagues? Thank you. Item 12 on the agenda is the High Street Heritage Action Zone for Swaffham, the conservation area, appraisal and master plan. We all like a master plan. Councillor Robinson, can I ask you, in Councillor Paul Closon's absence, if you would kindly speak to the report?
Thank you, Chairman. I present this report today on behalf of Councillor Paul Clausen, our Deputy Leader and Executive Member for Economic Development and Growth. And the purpose of today's item is to inform members and request approval for the public consultation for the draft conservation area appraisal document and draft master plan document. Colleagues will note 3 recommendations on page 101 of their agenda pack. Before we address those, Chairman, I would like to add a comment or two. As members will be aware, we, Brecon Council, are working in partnership with Historic England as part of the High Streets Heritage Action Zone programme in Swaffham. The objective is to reinvigorate an historic town centre. Originally programmed to start in March 2020, the programme was severely impacted by the restrictions and knock-on effects from the pandemic. This resulted in the loss of 1 year from the programme. However, through close work with Historic England and the support of local stakeholders, including Swaffham Town Council, the programme has been reconfigured to conclude within the required timescales and operate within the budget allowed. As a result, the programme started in Swaffham in March 2021 and will run until March 2024. The programme is on plan and on budget. The programme is being delivered alongside and the support of other strategic activity within the Council's Thriving Places programme, such as Future Brecon, which is creating an overarching blueprint and delivery plan for Swaffham, carefully incorporating all the work through the High Street Heritage Action Zone. The programme teams and respective consultants in each area have and will continue to work closely together as both progress. As a result, some of the early deliverables for the Future Brecon programme in Swaffham are likely to incorporate both the physical improvements brought about by the High Street Heritage Action Zone and the potential new approaches to the public realm part enabled through the master plan. The town centre will benefit from the updated conservation area appraisal that references modern and up-to-date planning policy and is more than user-friendly than the existing document, including changes in the conservation area that haven't been considered against planning policy previously. Swaffham will also benefit from a master plan document that will detail proposals in the future to encourage safe use of the town, as well as encouraging tourism and improving the experience of the town centre, which may lead to future funding opportunities. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mark. I would also say that Andrew Holdsworth is with us today. So if there's any questions or comments from anybody, Andrew will be able to help with those answers. Could I ask Cabinet colleagues if they have any questions, thoughts on this agenda item, please? Councillor Hewitt.
One observation, Chair. After a year, it's really glad to see that the plan is back on track. More to the point, the master plan is thoroughly detailed and brings the whole of the High Street Heritage Action Zone within Swaffham right up to speed with a view to moving forwards up to 2024. Congratulations for the authors, but now the hard work begins, I think.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hewitt. Any other Cabinet colleagues wish to comment? Anyone else in the room? Thank you very much. Before I move to the recommendations, I will say, you know, as a ward member for Swaffham, I realise how important this is, but I'm also pleased with the high level of engagement. Businesses, the council, town council have all engaged with this. They see it very much as a positive. This is good news. So thank you very much to the council for supporting this and making this happen. So the recommendation is that Cabinet approve the public consultation of the draft conservation area appraisal from the 8th of February to the 4th of March 2022, as outlined in Appendix B. That Cabinet approve the public consultation of the draft stage 3 and 4 report of the master plan from the 8th of February 22 to the 4th of March 22, as in Appendix C. 3, that Cabinet notes the progress being made in the HAS project and that the follow-up report will follow for Cabinet to consider the results of the public consultation before adoption. Can I have a show of hands on that, please, from Cabinet colleagues? Thank you very much. We move on to item 13, which is to note the details of the next meeting. That will be held, Cabinet will be held on Monday, the 21st of March at 9:30 in Elizabeth House here. Before I close the meeting, I'd like to thank very much my Cabinet colleagues and councillors also for attending, along with the full officer team. Thank you very much for your time, your reports and all the work that I know you put in. I was ably supported on both sides, and I'd like to thank the Chief Executive and the Deputy Chief Executive. Make sure I get all the titles right. And I'd like to thank everybody who took time to watch this on YouTube, either live or afterwards on a recording. So thank you very much. I declare the meeting closed.